Welcome back, it's Bacon Air 650 here with Crazy Cat Airsoft, and today we're going to do our initial review of Battle Creek. Since this is a new and growing field, we're going to forgo our rating system as the field is just always improving. So it wouldn't be fair to give it a rating system as the field will just continue to change, so it would kind of void our rating system, so we're just not going to do it. Additionally, our team has only been at the field's bigger events, never their skirmish days and stuff, so our view is a little bit limited to just those big events. The field's address does show that it is in Mechanicsburg, Illinois, but it is actually a little closer to Buckhart, Illinois, which is in between Springfield and Decatur, and closer to Springfield, the capital of Illinois. The address here is at 2850 Young Road, Mechanicsburg, Illinois, 62545, in case you need the address. So the total field area, including the playing field and the pit area, is about 14 acres, which puts it a bit on the smaller side for some of the fields that we've been to. In general, the field is broken down into two different areas, a woodland field and a more open field with bunkers, which is separated by a small road. The more open field is about 3 acres, which can be further divided into a northern part, which is occupied by smaller wooden bunkers and tire barricades. This area of the field is about 1.4 acres in size. Towards the south is a part of the field known as Terrace Town. This 1.6 acre area is occupied some miniature buildings, some concrete cylinders, tires, and many of the classic building materials for these smaller fields. In the middle of the field, though, sits the field's landmark trailer. In general, these fields are set up more for skirmishes and not so much for milsim events. As the field last stood, the northern part of the town has a stronger advantage over the southern, so much that almost every time that I've played on the northern side of the field, I get stuck behind the exact same bunker and can hold it against a much larger force easily. As with most new fields that open up, it sometimes does require a redesign to make it better. The town area, for example, will probably need this treatment to either make it more balanced or go with a more milsim-friendly field by combining several of the wooden miniature buildings into a larger mock-style building. Now, the woodland field, which is a little under 9 acres, is, in our team's opinion, the best field and one of the most fun woodland fields that we've played on. While normally the small towns win on being the more interesting part of the field, Battle Creek's woodland field is actually their surprising gem. The woodland field has a lot of nice sized trees which make great cover, and there's a decent amount of elevation change to provide cover as well. And all of this is the natural field. From the last report from the field, it looks like they will also be adding a fort in which will help add some more fun to this already great woodland field. The pit area is composed of parking and office area, and it is about 1 acre and features a decent parking area that's nice, wide, and open, and a decent sized building with a singular bathroom. In addition to the bathroom in the large building, there is also the office where payment and registration is done, which is air conditioning, and there is room for players to set up indoors if that's more your taste. As of now, Battle Creek is only cash only, as there's no credit card services set up in this rural area. So far, my interaction with the staff has been mostly positive, even with the team's relatively green experience. The staffing for the size of the events has been good. One of the things that our team has liked about the staff has been their very open ear to us and other players on how to improve the field in their operations. Additionally, the field owner is very good at being very adaptive with the gameplay. It makes changes to the games when things aren't going as well in order to ensure that everyone does have a good time. As with many new fields, operations are often constantly needing improvements due to new staff and everyone trying to gain their footings. As mentioned before, the field is very open to feedback, and most of the issues that we have encountered were addressed the next time around, which tells us that the field is bound to succeed as long as they keep open to feedback. Although one problem that we did encounter on both occasions at the field was that no one was chronographed, which actually became a safety issue the last time we played. We are confident, though, that they will start doing it properly, yet we may start carrying our own team's chrono to help in case they accidentally forget it, or to add another chrono station to help speed up check-in. Although it should be the note that it took several years of us giving feedback to Springfield to start chronographing players before they actually start doing it. So it looks like the Central Illinois area, this is just kind of something that all the fields have struggled with. Players are people who just want to try out Airsoft. Battle Creek does offer rentals both in face protection and for the guns as well. As with all the issues that we have had, a lot has to be forgiven as the field is new with new staff, and it is much easier to forgive them, especially as they address a lot of these issues and work hard at always improving it and making sure that everything is much better. So the first event that we went to at Battle Creek, they tried to do a Millsim event, and I do applaud the team for trying to attempt one, but unfortunately the current local crowd is not exactly interested in playing out such events. It appears that the team at Battle Creek has found their footing, though, doing much larger scale event games, much similar to, with singular events, very similar to Springfield. While this can be a disappointment for some of our team members on our side, it is probably for the best for the local area to have a thriving Airsoft field in our area by doing this, since it meets a larger audience. Maybe one day they will be able to actually pull off a proper Millsim event, but that's going to be actually more dependent on the local people coming to the field if that's something they want to do. I am, though, thankful that they have adopted some Millsim rules, including semi-auto restrictions and machine gunners being the only ones allowed to do full auto and play events, which makes gameplay, I believe, a lot more fun. As for the games over at Battle Creek, they tend to start a little later in the day at around 10 a.m. instead of the usual 8 a.m., which is kind of nice if you like to sleep in. It lets you catch a few little winks before going to the game. Comparing Battle Creek's ops to Springfield, the playing area is actually a little larger than Springfield. When Springfield has their ops, they tend to only use one half the field, which puts their right side, the usual area that they have the ops at, is around a little under 10 acres, about 9.6 acres, while Battle Creek actually uses the entire field, which is about 13 acres. So the actual playing area is slightly larger than compared to Bing, and additionally because of its more wide openness, that's not really a very long, narrow strip of land, it also means that movement is also a lot more dynamic. Like most new fields, Battle Creek initially did have some trouble executing an event, but have quickly learned from these experiences and are constantly improving. So any of the gameplay footage that you see, I wouldn't call that how the operations go, as they're doing a lot of this stuff for the first time. So you're just kind of seeing the growing pains of those. The field, though, I'm very thankful to say, is very open to players wanting to have people from all sorts of Airsoft backgrounds and willing to work with you so that you can play. While some sort of uniform is recommended, they are open to non-regular attire, to having and just evenly splitting these between the two teams. Some areas, though, that I think that could use some improvement. One would be a clearer published rule set. While they have a solid general rule set, some of the unique rules at some of the events, such as medic rules, team uniforms, should be more clear. For past events, they've just simply copy-paste one rule set from someone else and then paste it into theirs, which there's nothing wrong with this, but sometimes when looking at their other rule sets, there tends to be a little conflict. So it would be nice just to have their own published rule sets that are just nice and clear, exactly what the rules are. On this, personally, I would also publish some web videos on explaining some of these rules so people can look at the rules prior to coming to the event. Since most of the events are tan versus green, because of this, some of the camouflage that are kind of a balance between the two, i.e. multicam and Highlander, I believe, is a pretty good balance. It would be nice to have a very clear list of what is green and what is tan, instead of just saying, well, all green camo and all tan camo. you just kind of have to sometimes clarify what is tan and what is green. So even though it may seem obvious, sometimes it just needs to be clarified of what is tan and what is green. And then anything that's not on that list, you just kind of have to use your judgment on that.
You said you didn't see any tans. Have you seen tans through here? No.
Additionally, a slight issue with the tan versus green setup is that we are in a very woodland area here in central Illinois, which means that most individuals are going to own green-based camouflages. This can sometimes cause teams to be uneven. Well, a quick fix to this is that the tan team usually gets more of the ununiform individuals, which sometimes may be the less experienced individuals. There's no real big fix for this issue outside of having mandatory pre-registration to limit the amount of people on each team, which I believe the field is afraid of doing, as this may discourage some people from coming out to the events. While I'm not a terrible fan of the armbands, I think something like that may have to come into play in the future to have properly balanced teams. Additionally, if you're going to have the ununiformed people or coming out to play, we have no way to identifying whether or not they're tan or green, since they get split up between both sides. So therefore, I really do think that some sort of armband or armband alternatives, like a 2x3 flag size patch in red, blue, green, brown, whatever color they choose, or a hat or a shirt, whatever, may have to come into play, because there is a bit of confusion because of the openness. There is a bit of confusion of who's on whose team sometimes. Now on a side gripe, which is a gripe against the industry, not really against the field, but the whole tan versus green. Usually some of the impressionists usually get screwed over with this system, such as someone with multicam loadout having to play North Korea, or a U.S. Marine with MARPAD or AR-2 having to play the role of a Russian or Chinese. It is kind of unfair for those who usually pay a lot of money for their kits to do this impressionist and then get thrown into some role that's the polar opposite of what their impressionist is doing. Now, my solution that I know which works best for this is to go the alt sim route and not make it a make the tan versus green have a NATO versus Warsaw or whoever theme, but instead go with a non-US versus alternate baddies route, kind of similar to what I believe the American Milsim is. It's not US versus such, they make fictional sides, so things such as Empires versus Rebels, Federation versus Dominion, Alliance versus Browncoats, stuff like that, where you have two different sides. They're not based, they can be loosely based, but so that way you don't have impressionists getting really kind of feel like they're getting screwed over, and they're paying money to play on the opposite role of what their impressionist kit is. And that's more of an industry thing, but I think that the field could learn from that. So the player turnout has been observed to be greater than 50 to sub 100, which is a good turnout for the size of the field. The player demographic does tend to be more of the 15 to 30 age group. Occasionally we've noticed a few people older, and I really haven't come across too many people younger than 16 years old on the field, which is kind of a nice break from the fields that have mobs of younger 10-year-old players. While younger players are the future of Airsoft, it is nice to come to a field with an older players, because sometimes younger players can just be ignorant of the most basic rules of the game, so usually there's less complications with that. The playstyle of the group is pretty casual, with the exception of maybe a dozen or so players. The players are definitely more of the skirmisher crowd, who on the competitive speedsoft side versus simulation side are pretty much in the middle and make up the bulk of the Airsoft population, with the rest, that dozen or so players, are actually probably more the Milsim crowd, hoping for a more Milsim experience. And I have not seen any speedsoft players at the field. Not anything against them, it's just it doesn't seem to attract that type of play style. About 90% of the players that I have met there are good people, with maybe 2 or 3 players that were conducting unsporting behavior. This is completely out of the field's hands by the way of who turns up. To be honest, this is pretty good ratio. I've been to fields that are better, and I've been to a lot of fields that are a lot worse, and I've also been to fields that have been downright horrible. So I'm quite content with this ratio of good to problem people. You just always have it. The last time we played, we were there were definitely some hot guns, which I think drove home the point, the importance of why you need a chrono. Giving some people the benefit of that, I do believe that the hot guns were mostly done out of ignorance instead of malicious intent. Common myth in Airsoft is that using heavier weight BBs to lower your FPS will bring it to safe limits. This is false. Instead of having me explain why this is, I want to post a link here from Jonathan Higgs from Airsoftology of him explaining it. But I think that's why it's important to chrono, and always chrono with 0.2 gram BBs and have spare magazines for other people's guns for that. Another thing that we did notice is because there is no kind of miniature shooting range for people to test their guns, people were kind of discharging their airsoft guns all kind of willy-nilly all over the place. And we did have a few BBs fly past us, which for the most part, every time we were in the pits, we swapped usually our iPro from our main iPro to some sort of still ANZ rated, but not full seal eye protection because of this occasional BBs that would come flying past us. I would encourage the field to set up some sort of range so people can test their guns. I think people were just testing them and were just kind of completely oblivious. I don't think a lot of people who come here have real world firearm experience and understand the safety principles. So just kind of keep that in mind. Hopefully, though, they'll set something up. And this incident, which we only encountered one time, will not happen again. Overall, most everyone here has been good that I've met, and I've always enjoyed anyone who's actually been set up on my team, which is kind of nice. The teams do tend to be imbalanced, favoring the green side, as previously mentioned, so just keep that in mind when coming out to this field. So if you do have a tan or multicam loadout, please come. Our team would love to play with you and have more people on the tan side to help balance things out. Overall, Battle Creek is a new and growing field, which is one of the reasons why we forgo our rating system on it. But we do give a recommendation to definitely come out and try the field, as it is always improving. The field still needs to grow in a lot of areas, but it's always improving, as previously mentioned. So, it should be going very well for the field. We do believe at a minimum it will become a solid field, and possibly at the most optimistic, this field will really help Central Illinois and help grow the sport of airsoft. So if you're in the area or you want to make a trek out to Central Illinois to play some airsoft and then head into Springfield for our famous horseshoe sandwiches, check out and please help support Battle Creek Airsoft. Just be aware the field is new, but as we have mentioned multiple times, is constantly improving. So come check it out. This is Bacon Air 650 with Crazy Cat Airsoft.